Our guest today is Matt Little, who is the head of the upper school at the Nantucket New School and also teaches science there. You've been teaching science on Nantucket for a while, Matt, haven't you?
Yes, indeed I have. I came out to the island after I graduated from college in 1989 and started teaching that summer.
Really?
Actually,
in the Nantucket school system?
I was in the public school system for a number of years, yes. I started at the Nantucket High School.
One of your major interests, if not your primary focus, is environmental education.
Indeed.
And I thought it would be good to talk about Nantucket as an environmental classroom because there are so many different things going on here, and I don't know that a lot of people are aware of the breadth of experiences and knowledge that people can pick up here, especially kids. So,
and that is a great point, Dan, and that is probably the crux of what I do here on the island. I believe that science education, more specifically environmental science and environmental, striving for this environmental literacy with our children. Nantucket's a perfect place for that because the island itself, the physical beauty and the biomes and the flora and fauna that exist on the island lend itself perfectly to education. As many have used the term, it's a living laboratory, or more specifically in this case, a living classroom. Also, the other side of the coin is the fact that there are a number of institutions dedicated to the stewardship of the island here on Nantucket. And I could prattle off a few, as you know. And the staff at almost all of these organizations are very helpful in working alongside me and working with the students. So it's a great opportunity to get the students out on the island and experience the island and its nature, but also getting to work with other people who are true scientists working in the field. So
What are some of the special opportunities for learning for kids?
The students have an opportunity to work with mentors around the island. We have scientists from the MattLiddle8 Foundation, Mariah Mitchell Association, Conservation Foundation, the UMass Field Station, Audubon Society, and the Nantucket Land Council, and most recently the Marine Shellfish Department. We've been working with Tara as well.
Down at the boathouse?
Down at the boathouse, that's correct. So each senior gets paired up with a scientist and they develop a area to study. The students come up with a thesis, so to speak, and then they delve into the research and collecting data with their respective mentors. And this has proven very valuable on a number of levels. One is, as I said before, the students get out on the island. Secondly, as also previously mentioned, they worked with their mentors and other scientists around the island. But it gives them this exposure to research and to science as a verb, actually doing the science as opposed to working within the confines of a classroom and a textbook.
What are some of the unique experiences that Nantucket provides people like that?
Well, the fact that I can take my students and outfit them in snorkeling gear and take the seining nets and hop into one of our vans and be at the coast in a matter of minutes, I think that in and of itself is pretty unique. Furthermore, we have part of our ecosystem out at the MattLiddle8 Foundation, for instance. We have a particular biome, the Sand Plains grasslands, which are very unique, and most of which exist here on Nantucket and the Vineyard and Block Island. So the opportunity to take our students out and work with scientists such as Vern Lux from the foundation and to study those Sand Plain grasslands in depth is something very few students get to do at the middle school, high school, or even college level. So I think that is probably what's most unique.
And also, I would think that the mixture between the marine and the terrestrial part of the experience is something that most young people won't get in other places. There may be a few other places where it exists, but it's very different than it is here.
You're right. You're right. In fact, the name of my course is Land and Sea, because we do study both the terrestrial and the marine ecosystems, and what's key to their understanding of the world around them is the interaction between both of those systems, the terrestrial and the marine, because as we're finding out, Nantucket, such a small microcosm here, we can study quite in depth the interactions or the play of what's happening along our coastlines and how it's affecting our harbor, which, working with Dr. Oaktai at the UMass Field Station, those are what her studies with my students have focused on mainly, is and the effects of nutrient loading on the coast and how it impacts the harbor itself. So yeah, to have those two natural classrooms accessible and the people to work with it makes this quite a unique place to work and live and teach.
What do you think the students get most out of this? Is it the experience? Is it the ability, just the experience itself of working with these various laboratories, if you will, or is it the mentoring part of it, or is it a combination of the two? What really speaks to them in this process? I mean, they're still pretty young.
They are young,
and
they are young. It's a package deal, Dan. It really is. They benefit, you know, from the actual instruction and the content that's being delivered. But especially with the people that have chosen to work with the children, they are exceptional instructors. And what I tend to use, to steal a phrase from Rachel Carson, that sense of wonder. And that's what, at this age, you do mention they are young, but to instill that sense of wonder that's actually not instilled, it's always there. Unfortunately, as students in the sciences move through their progression of courses and get to more advanced levels, they tend to lose that sense of wonder as they do get more focused and disciplined. So at this stage, to kind of keep it fun, to keep it wonderful, and to keep that sense of wonder alive is really the most important thing I think the kids on this island get out of it. When they come slogging back in their waders with their nets and buckets full of creatures, and they go home that day and sit at the dinner table and the parents ask, "What did you do in school today?" At least it's my hope it's not the same, "Oh, nothing," you know, it's the same. They can go into that. And I think those memories they take with them. And I've heard that from graduates.
Have you been able to track the graduates and see how many of them sort of stay in environmental science of one form or another? And I mean, it's early days still, but...
It is. Well, I have been teaching some time, so I've actually had students of mine come back and become teachers. Students of mine come back and work at these various organizations I've mentioned.
Somebody like Andrew McCandless, for example?
Andrew McCandless is a great example. You know, Craig Arnold would be another example of a student of mine who got into the field and studies this. Yeah, that's probably one of my greatest joys, quite frankly, is seeing graduates and past students continue on, carrying the torch, so to speak.
What is the real legacy for these kids? I mean, carrying the torch, having that sense of wonder, is that it, or is there more to it than that? Or giving back, I would think, would be part of it. That is either directly or indirectly.
Precisely, and oftentimes it's probably indirectly that we may not ever be able to see or measure, but I do hope that is the case, as many of our students do leave and don't come back. I do hope, that is my hopes, that they're carrying that on. But to further and better understand this island and how it relates to the world around them, I think that's something, Dan, that they'll always have with them. And I think that would be probably the most important legacy in my mind, is their appreciation for the natural world and where all that began.
Do you incorporate astronomy into it as well?
I am actually want to work with the new astronomer at Mariah Mitchell, Dr. West, and I am hoping we have just inherited a telescope at the new school, so I would very much like to incorporate more of that into our curriculum.
Because it's part of Nantucket, and it's part of, I mean, if you were out in the sky, looking at the sky the last few nights.
Last night I was out fishing at Smith's Point, and it was unbelievable.
It really has been for the last several nights. No, it's not always that way, but still, the fact that people can appreciate that is
that the absence of the light pollution and the dark skies that we have do lend itself to that study. And yeah, while there was no fish, there certainly were plenty of stars to gawk at.
That's great. MattLiddle, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for
talking about Nantucket as a living laboratory. It's a wonderful, wonderful place, and you do a great job in getting people to understand it.
Well, thank you, Dan. Thanks for having me.